Welcome to the October 22, 2022 Saturday virtual Met of the NMRA-PCR Coast Division featuring Layout Without a Plan by Bruce Morden.
Well, good morning. Welcome. This is our October 22nd Saturday virtual meetup of the NMRA-PCR Coast Division. So I wanted to welcome everyone. Today we have a really cool program. We have Bruce Morden with us doing a very interesting clinic about kind of what should your strategy be doing a layout. And one of the things I find is I talk to a lot of people and they're doing a lot of things and waiting to build their ultimate layout. And I think Bruce could have talked about whether waiting or building right away is the best thing. So we will do that. Before we start, I want to just make sure everyone notes that December 4th, we will be having our next auction at the Mastic Senior Center in Alameda. That's all set up. We're doing some final things with them in terms of getting tables and things together, but we're all set for that event. So with that, I will throw it over to Bruce and let Bruce start and talk a little bit about his layout planning strategy, or maybe lack thereof sometimes. So Bruce, over to you.
All right, let me set this up and it should work.
Excellent, looks very good.
Okay, so now I've got the plain old arrow back. Let's see if I can just grab that.
Yep.
Spotlight.
Same thing.
There we go. Perfect. Okay, so I don't need that. Can we get rid of that? Yep. Everybody can see that all right? So as David was mentioning, you notice how the tracks don't quite line up right. And that's on purpose for the title. I tried not to do that on the layout. But this is basically a little story about my layout and what I've done along the way. It's not done. Like a lot of model railroads, it probably won't ever be done. But we'll talk about, I lose it every time. Let's just go without it. So most of us who want to build a layout put together a plan or two. And I used a CAD program, actually Third Planet, and I must have done several hundred plans. Not all a whole lot different. They just kind of evolved. And I said, I don't like that, so I changed it. And the neat thing about the CAD programs is you can save as you go along, and you can always back up and pull that one up again and go down a different stream if you want. But we dream about what kind of a railroad we want a lot of times for a long, long time before we even put anything together. And I have this friend who built a good sized layout. He tore it down. He's building another one, but right now he's in a planning stage. But he worked for the movies as a prop designer and builder. And one of the things he said the other day was, there's never time to do it right, but there's always time to do it over. So he says, build it, then fix the heck out of it later. So that's an interesting idea. And it is something that's worthwhile doing. Certainly planning is important. And I put down some planning tools here. Pen and paper is real easy. Better yet is pencil eraser and paper. Then you can make your changes. There are a lot of computer programs, and I put a bunch down. I'm sure there's more. I'm not sure all these ones are still in existence even. One of the best planning tools is visiting other layouts. And if you're into operations, operating on those layouts will give you some feel for what you like to do, what you want to do on your layout. And the camaraderie of visiting and operating with other people is the best part of this hobby anyway, as far as I'm concerned. So I have gone to some resources. The Layout Design Special Interest Group is all about designing your layout. And they have a group on IO, on the group's IO, that you can go to and just listen or ask questions, whatever. The operations special interest group is really designed for operations, and they also have a group's IO list. I should make a disclaimer here. I am the vice president of the OPSIG at the moment, so I have a bias, but I also do a lot of stuff for the LDSIG. And for us as Coast Division people, I want to encourage you. The Bay Area SIG meet has been going on for, I don't know how long. I've been going since before 2004, so probably 20 years. And they're going to have the meet on February 4th, 2023. I'm not sure where it's going to be yet. We're looking at Alameda. There's a couple places we're looking at the moment. It will be a hybrid, so you can go in person or do it virtually. We may be meeting down in the South Bay if we can't find a good place in Alameda. If we go South Bay, we're probably going to be at the South Bay Historical Society there at the Santa Clara Depot. But just a plug for all three of these things, the LDSIG, the OPSIG, and the Bay Area SIG meet. So me, I've been model railroading for a long time. This is these are a couple of pictures my dad took of myself and my sister. Obviously getting into model trains here on the left, but on the right, this is a wooden footbridge that went across, well, kind of wooden, metal frame, wood footbridge that went across the bull ring yard down in Los Angeles. And so we'd go down there occasionally and watch trains. So that was kind of fun. And when I first started, you made a car by putting a box together and putting paper sides on it. You guys remember that, don't you? When I got to college, I didn't have a lot of space, but I put a shelf up on my bookcase above my desk and built this little 10-foot logging railroad. And it worked pretty well. It was fun, DC. But, you know, if you keep it simple, just direct current, don't have to go with any of these fancy things, simple wiring, just 2 wires, 1 train, so you don't have any meets. And if you have a square, you can just do a round and round, like kind of like this. But you know what? That gets kind of boring. You can imagine things. I modeled the Southern Pacific. They used to have a train that pulled oil from Bakersfield over Tehachapi to Mojave. And they later on used it from San Ardo down to Wilmington in the harbor area of Los Angeles. It was called the Cans. And here's my version of the SP Cans. The reason I did this is because I could put the track down, glue it down, and then put the cans on top and hold it down, weight it. And I just thought, oh, this is fun. Let's put an engine in front of it. So the first thing you want to do is negotiate your space. You need to know how big a space you have to even start planning. Then you clear the space, prepare it, and then fill it with your plan. And for sure, get help. So my negotiations were for half of a garage for a long time. But unfortunately, the half filled up. I don't know what it is about garages, but they have a tendency to collect everything. But a lot of this is train stuff. If you look in here, you look closely, there's old layouts and Athearn kits and NMRA convention bags and train magazines, G-scale stuff, even prototype switch stands and rails and things. But you have to get it out of there if you're going to put the layout. If you look real closely here, along the left side of the picture, there's a line. When we first moved into this house, I drew this line. I painted a line on the garage floor and told my wife, I want that side for the layout and we can park the car on the other side. Well, as I got to planning, that wasn't going to work. So I said, well, how about if I have the rest? And she said, it's okay as long as I can still have my washer and dryer in the room. So that's what we did. Car doesn't stay there anymore. Like I said, get lots of help. Originally, the garage was half finished. My wife and I had to put up a couple extra beams in the ceiling. The joists were 24 inches apart, except for the last two bays, which were 48 inches apart. Can't put up drywall that way. So we put up a couple more joists. Once it all got done, everything looks pretty good. Even have some L girder bench work there against the window. But I decided I'd sealed the concrete floor because the concrete dust just keeps coming. It doesn't stop. And I got my wife to help me out. So like I said, get some help. I do model the SP. Right now I'm modeling 1994, a couple of years before the merger with Union Pacific. There's a possibility I'll backdate, and I'll talk to you about that at the end. So where I'm modeling is in the Santa Barbara area. This is Santa Barbara right here. And so I model a little 10-mile or a 20-mile section right in through here. And most of this isn't modeled at all. This section in here is modeled from White Hills on the branch, and then from Surf up to Devon, about here. And that's it. And it's on the second level, and we'll see that later. So I started with the first level. As I said, the washer and dryer is still in the room. The rest is basically just a big oval. It goes around the outside like this, and then right back around, and you can do it over and over and over again. The staging yards are off the oval on both sides. Byron Henderson did a plan like this in the 2004 model railroad planning. His oval in the middle was the Santa Maria Valley. And I think that he still has it on his Layout Visions webpage. If you Google Layout Visions, you can find Byron's webpage. So that was my first level. This is after a lot of drawings and trying to figure out what I could fit in the space. So here's what it looked like. You can see the west staging area over here, the helix in the back. This is the Santa Barbara area here. Not much of anything in the layout. There's another view of the staging yard. The second level, once I went to the second level, it basically is the same layout as the first level. It just doesn't have big yards or not much of anything in it, except that here at Surf, there is this Y, and the back, the leg of the Y goes all the way into Lompoc. So it's on a shelf above that west staging yard. And this has an extension that goes out into the driveway. And then this goes up a 3% grade and around the helix. So it's over the top of the track that comes in, and it goes over to the White Hills mine, the diatomaceous earth mine down in Lompoc. So that's basically the branch. It's about 60 feet long. About 100 feet for each level, and then 40 feet in the helix to get from one level to another. So about 240 feet from start of visible layout to the end of the visible layout. I'm not really going to talk about the helix, but the helix ended up having two helices in the same spot. The one in the middle takes it from the top all the way down again into this staging yard. So you can go from one staging yard to another, or you can go from one staging yard all the way across the layout and then to the other staging yard. So it's always point to point, unless you just run around continuous. So these are just some views showing the second level. This is the Y at Surf. At this point, I was using a hardboard spline, masonite spline. And it was really nice for making nice transition curves from one place to another. It looked like this. But I had some issues leveling it out. It wasn't level either longitudinally or laterally. So we ended up replacing most of it with plywood. So you can see some of the hardboard spline here. And then here's the plywood going into place. We used the splines to mark where the tracks went, and we just laid new flex track down on top. So this is relaying all the area and adding track in the Goleta area. Originally, there were just two tracks here, the main and the siding. And we added the house track and an industry spur here. So this is just in the process. So even though you do all this planning ahead of time, once you start building, there's changes that you can make. I'm making these before I add any scenery, obviously. And I don't wait for the scenery. This is an operating session. We brought a train over from Santa Barbara and switched out both Goleta and La Patera. This is some of my local club members. I had an interesting situation here that I'll talk about briefly. This was a hole, this brown area, and it's just a foam piece. Down underneath is the east yard. And I didn't want to block the whole thing, so I wanted to have it so it was removable. So I laid track on it. There's transition tracks that go across, and there's a plug underneath so you can unplug the wiring. And it seems to work okay, but I haven't had any emergencies yet, so we'll test it later. Or maybe not, hopefully not. But this is more that addition of track down at La Patera.
So Bruce, just a question. So was that addition done because as you did operations, you found that you needed more interest in that area, or kind of what drove those changes?
Well, actually, it was on the original plan, and I just hadn't figured out how to do it. And so when I got to this point, then I looked at it and I said, oh, this would be pretty easy to just add a removable section here and then put what I need to in there. And
I was thinking more about the house track at Goleta, that additional.
No, that was in the original plan also.
Ah, okay.
I just had not added it. It was something down the road. I wanted to get the main and the sidings in so I could start running. But I was going to add that house track and the industry track over in Goleta as well.
Cool.
Most of the track arrangements are based loosely on the actual track arrangements that Southern Pacific had. And I've gotten, I'll show all of you later how I get there, but this is the La Patera area, and we'll probably see that again later. Yeah, we'll talk about the structure later. Although maybe take a quick look and remember this. See how this is just foam core with a photograph pasted on the top of it. That's all it is. And from this side, it looks terrible, but here it doesn't look too bad. But these are just stand-ins. So I had this interesting problem that demanded a change. This is an industrial area in Santa Barbara. There's quite a few industries down in here that need to be switched. But what happens is that the trains come in here on the red main line or the siding, and they have cars that get dropped off or picked up here in Santa Barbara. And this is the yard over here on this top part. So once they drop the cars off, how do the cars get from here to here? Well, they have to go out the lead and then down the siding and out this end and then way back again, and then take this switch here into the industrial, or they go out the other way, come out this end, go all the way past, so we're on single track, and then come back in on this little side track. And I said, that doesn't make sense. There's got to be a way to get across faster than that. So what we did was we put a crossing between the two double track mains. So then all you have to do is come out to this, come down, do a little seesaw, and you're back in. So that works pretty well. And in fact, that's what the real railroad did. You can see the crossover right here between the two mains. There's another picture of it shooting the other direction. So I just put the same thing in on the on my layout. Here's one of the mains. This is the line that goes into the industrial area. This is the other main, and then this is the yard over here. So what I did was, okay, so it's between these two tracks. So I just put in some Homosote road bed, sanded it all down, got it ready, replaced a couple sections with some turnouts, connected them up, and we're done. So now I've got a crossover and I can get from one place to another without as much trouble. So the pictures are really helpful for research. This is an old aerial photograph of Santa Barbara. This is actually taken after the June 29th, 1925 earthquake. A lot of buildings collapsed. Stearns Wharf collapsed. This is an interesting picture because it doesn't even have a breakwater here. This is about 2 years before Max Fleischmann built this little breakwater that's still there. But this is the main line for Southern Pacific. This is the ice house down here at the bottom. The roundhouse is just out of the picture below. The station that's still being used by Amtrak is right here. But my interest was this freight house, because I really wanted the freight house on my layout. So you blow up the picture and you can see it better. There are some other tracks in here that go out here. But this building is still here. This building is still here. I think this one is too. There's quite a few things that are still here. And this is a 1925 aerial photograph. So this is what the freight house looked like. Get some photographs. This is another photograph of it, although they were concentrating on the engine, obviously. And then in 1970, they tore it down. They dismantled it all. This is a Sanborn map, and it shows the freight house and the trackage. Not always a great idea to rely on the trackage, but it's helpful. Here's the other spurs that showed a little bit in that other photograph. Another resource is Google Maps. You can do aerials of Google Maps. And in fact, here is the tracks going through town. They've changed the routing of the roadways. If you look back at the Sanborn map, it says Santa Barbara and Cabrillo. And Santa Barbara is this street right here. And it used to go right straight through to Cabrillo. And it doesn't anymore. They've made Garden Street curve around and become the main drag. So the freight house sat right here. And in fact, if you got real close, which I think I can, here's the concrete ramp that was on one of those spurs behind the freight house that sat right here. So it's still there. So you can do railroad archaeology with a lot of resources if you look around. The other place to look is some of the museums. This is a freight house in El Centro. It's not quite as long, but it gives you the idea, and I can use it a little bit to build the freight house. This particular drawing came from the Southern California Railroad Museum, the old Orange Empire Museum down in Paris, California. But the California State Railroad Museum also has a lot of these drawings. So you just have to get to the place where they have them and then access them, and you're in business. The other place is several people, no, not several. I have a good friend, Jean-Guy Dubé, who's a draftsman, and he draws these things. He did the drawings in Henry Bender's station book. And he's done a book of his own just on depots, SP depots. So this was in there. It's not a freight house, but it has the same feel as that freight house. The freight house obviously has a dock all the way down. And in fact, they used the offices at that freight house as the dispatching office for Santa Barbara for a long time until they tore it down. So here's the place where I was going to put it. I added some track down the back side so it would make full use of both this side. We really don't want to put cars over here because this is the main. This is main, this is main, this is yard over here. So I put down just a piece of paper to say, oh, this is the footprint. What can I build in that? I made some mistakes, but here's my mock-up. It doesn't look too bad, but it's too small. It's scale-wise, it's more like 1 to 96 or even 1 to 120. It needs to be bigger. So I'm probably going to have to do some compression on the building to get it in place. The other thing I found is that I had some fluorescent shop lights, and I decided I'd try something else. And I found these LED shop lights on Amazon for about 60 bucks for I think there's 8 of them or something. Yeah, 8 of them for $60. And they're just little strip lights, but they really do a good job. You can see, I don't know whether you can or not. Yes, you can. This is an old shop light. And then there's the LED lights. And they just daisy chain from one to another. So it works out pretty well. And it gives me plenty of light, a lot more light than the shop lights had. So I've changed that. I also put some underdeck lighting in. I got some LED strips. And that's what the strip looks like with the LEDs are the yellow ones. And when you put them up, I put them on a quarter round so that they shine up and not down. One person commented that when you have the LEDs and they're shooting down, you get these spots on the rails when you take photographs. I don't notice them when I'm looking, but when I took the photographs, I don't see them either. This is with the LEDs in the industrial area in Santa Barbara. Here's the west staging area without the LEDs, and here it is with it. Just you get a little more light down the whole row. So I've added that. That was not in the original plan. Neither was detection. I'm going to make another plug for a Coast Division business, but the Model Railroad Control System, Seth Newman, has a whole lot of neat electronic things. And I'm using their CPODs for my detection. I've detected all the main, all the way around the layout. And I'm going to use that to run some searchlight signals. So I'm building the searchlight signals from showcase miniatures. They turn out pretty good, and they're being driven. It's all DTC. So I don't have to do a whole lot. It just runs off itself. It's all run off of a signal controller that Seth does sell. It's Dennis Drury's design. Dennis was a SP. What do I want? I don't want to say signalman, but he was kind of. He ran their detection car for a long time. And Dennis is also a PCR member. He's in the Sierra division. But he's got this really nice little controller. You daisy chain the detections together through this controller, and it runs the signals. So COVID came along, and we had lots of Zoom meetings and a lot of time at home by myself. And I was thinking of other things to do. And a couple of people started doing Zoom operations. And so I started looking at that and looked at what they'd done and really wanted to do it, but I didn't move along as fast as I wanted. So I have not done this. Bob Rodriguez, Pete Mulvaney up in Canada, and Dave Ablis back in New Jersey are all doing it. I've operated at Dave's in person, but they all were operating remotely using some of the stuff. They used Wi-Fi throttles, and we use Wi-Fi throttles locally using a Raspberry Pi. Actually works better than the throttles that are provided with the system that we use. I put some layout cameras in. You can see the cameras mounted in a few places here, and they're designed to see most of the layout, not all of it. And the view it gives is not, I'll show it to you in a minute, but the view I get from the cameras is an overall view. It doesn't help me with switching or anything. Also tried some locomotive cameras. So I got this one, the camera is circled in red. The driver is this big box, which actually fits inside this dummy locomotive with the camera sitting right in the engineer's window. So you truly get an engineer view as you use the camera. I tried it with some other small cameras, and I did some videos, and I'll try and show those at the end. This is from the cameras that I showed you earlier. So you get a view of most of the layout, but you don't get, it's not a close view. So you can see both levels. Here's Carpinteria down here. Here's surf up above. It shows you almost everything. I mean, this is Santa Barbara. You come around here, and then the train would go that way. Then it goes around this way. I don't have anything along the garage door, which you see in the background. But you can follow the trains in a lot of places. This is actually Goleta over here. I don't know what. That's Goleta. You can see the washing machine over here. And then this is Devon up top. But I never got that far. We were also going to use cats to help us out in terms of dispatching so that people could use cats at a distance and still operate the layout. That's the start of cats. Cats is started out as now everybody calls it computer automated traffic system, but it was originally designed for Pat Lana's layout, which was the Krandig. So it was the Krandig automated traffic system. Rodney Black has put it together. He's gotten a lot of help along the way. And there is a groups IO list for cats as well. I'm terrible at wiring. I thought DCC, this will be easy. You just have two power bus, and you do some feeders to the track, and you're in business. It's almost as simple as DC direct control, direct current operation. But as you go along, you keep adding stuff, and the tracks start looking really the wire underneath looks terrible after a while. And if you aren't careful, you're going to lose everything. So this is a camera, this is a power strip. Here's a sub bus. There's throttle buses in here, auxiliary power. Then all the wires that go for the tortoise from the switch and to the tortoise itself. Well, what I should be doing is this, putting tags on things every once in a while so we can at least know where things are. And so that's something else that I'm planning to do, but haven't gotten to yet. I'm going to end up with a little bit more about structures and how I do some of the research on it. I really haven't done a lot, but it's stuff that needs to be done. If you put a depot on or an industry, it really kind of puts the layout in a location that's easily identifiable. So I'm hoping to have 7 depots and 3 shelters along the right of way. I have some kits, but most of it's going to be scratch building. So the depots are Carpinteria, Summerlin, Santa Barbara, Goleta, Surf, Lompoc, and Casmelia. And there were shelters at Serena, Miramar, and Tangier. I really mix up my my era when I do the depots. A lot of the depots lasted for a long time, so that's okay. But others came and went really quickly and probably shouldn't be on my depot, my layout, but I'm going to have them there anyway. So collecting photographs is always a good idea if you can find them. I live in Carpinteria, so I have access to the historical museum here, and I've picked up pictures along the way. Again, this is a Jean-Guy Dubé drawing here on the upper right. What he did was do me a big blueprint, and I just photocopied the blueprint, cut out the appropriate pieces, and pasted them onto a styrofoam board block at the moment, and it just sits there at Carpinteria where it should. So it's the right footprint and everything, but it's still a stand-in. The Southern Pacific Historical and Technical Society did a combination 17 kit several years ago that was done by Bantam Models, and I have it. I just haven't built it yet. Summerland. These 2 pictures up top are Summerland. This is a later picture. This one is just, I think they just finished it. The 2 pictures below are also the same standard depot, but these are in Canby, Oregon. And my son lives up near there, so we went there with my oldest granddaughter one afternoon and had a great time, and I took a bunch of pictures. Pictures are always a good idea if you can find them. The Summerlin Depot was torn down years ago, so I need to make do as I can. The Santa Barbara Depot is still there, so collect pictures. This is one of mine here on the right. I can't remember. I think this is a Donald Duke picture here on the left. And then again, this is a Jean-Guy Dubé drawing. Back in 1998, the city of Santa Barbara, which owns the depot, decided that they would do some refurbishing, and they did a whole series of full-scale plans. And so I have a copy of the plans, so it's really helpful for when I get around to finally building this. they have had their problems. This is 1914. There was a little bit of water there then. We are having a drought now. The tracks run through here somewhere. But this is all water, and this is what it looked like afterwards. A total disaster. But here's the depot on my layout. I just took a photograph, pasted it on a block, and sit it down where it's supposed to be. The Goleta Depot is still in existence, but it's been moved. But you can go there and take pictures, measure it if you want. This is another Jean-Guy Dubé drawing. This is a Charlie Lang picture in its original location, with the local switcher there and a couple of SP maintenance away. Right now, all I have is a picture pasted on the fascia. It'll go right in here and it won't fit. So I have this idea of cutting it in half and having the back open, putting some plastic plexiglass or Lexan or something along the back end, and doing the interior so you can see inside and have the station there. So that's the plan for that. It'll get there someday. Surf, I don't have any room for surf, so it's going to be really flat. Maybe I'll use the other half of the depot that I cut off at Goleta. It is a combination 22. There are variations. Surf in particular added this whole building down at the end. They, in fact, tore the depot down in about 70, 71, and the only thing left was this building. And they used that for the train orders. The operator was in that building until the end. Combination 22 depots. There's an HO kit from American Limited. That's a laser kit. It works pretty well. Here's another combination 22 at Lompoc. Down here in the lower left is my Lompoc, and all I have is a picture of it right now. But there is space for it. It's an interesting modification. It's hard, not really easy to see, but there's a stairway here going up to the second level. They had a doorway on the second level on the back side, and you could go into the upstairs from outside the building without going in. Little things like that'll make the building. Oops, let's go back. Casmelia is the last one. They did have a combination 23 depot. Before that, they had a telegraph office. I'm probably going to go with the telegraph office just because it's different. The shelters, this is Serena, just a small little shelter. This is a picture of Serena. I could walk here in about 5 minutes from my house, except that where this road is where the 101 freeway is now. The tracks are still there. I know right exactly where the shelter was, but it hasn't changed much. This one's been my hardest depot or shelter. I have a picture of the Eaglet shelter, and the Eaglet shelter was moved to Tangier, which is on my layout. It served as an arrival station for troops during World War II to Camp Cook. And they enclosed the building and put a ceiling in, 2 windows and a door and a counter. But that was all done in 1942. This is information from Henry Bender, and apparently it was taken off the rolls in 1960. Whether it even existed that long, I don't know. I've contacted Vandenberg historian, and they don't have any information either. So I keep looking. Here's the Miramar shelter picture I took of the replacement shelter. The original shelter looked like the postcard in the lower right. And this is again a drawing by Jean-Guy Dubé. The people that own the Miramar Hotel decided they put the shelter up. There is some talk that Rick Caruso, who owns the Rosewood at Miramar Resort now, is going to put one in, but it hasn't happened yet. It was a flag stop, so it doesn't really matter. Trains don't stop there anymore. Industries, there's a whole lot of industries I'd like to do. I'll just show you a few. This is Carpinteria. This was the Carpinteria Mutual Lemon Association packing house. It's currently a brewery, Island Brewing. And I just took photographs of it, pasted it on some cardstock and put it up next to the track. And I'm probably not going to do a whole lot more than that. This is a picture of what's left of the old fish bean warehouse. They packed lima beans. It was torn down and condos were built here, but they were built in the same style as the packing house. So it's all like corrugated metal on the outside of these, and different levels and things. So it actually has the feel of the old packing house. I have a stand-in building right now. This probably isn't going to stay, but I liked how it has the upper parts and all the different pieces for it. So I just I put it on the layout. Actually came from a friend of mine's layout who passed away this last year. And I had operated down there a couple of times, so it's also a memory. A couple of other little ones. This is a Walthers kit, and it reminded me of the Standard Oil Company, which is in that Santa Barbara industrial area, as is the McNall Building Supplies. When I first started looking at things, you could still find rails in the asphalt. McNall Building Supplies was right in here. But the tracks went right down that way. Where these trees are down here is the main line. It just went down there. It was like a stub came off. And that's how I built it. This is Union Oil. These tanks have since been removed, but I'm going to have them on where it is. And this structure's will be built there in the corner. You've already seen this. This is the Goleta Lemon Association. You can see the two tracks here. This other building was a produce building. It sat out here and between two other tracks. The main line's way out here. But all these are run off a spur that also serves the lumber company. So here's the produce building. They moved it. The city of Goleta has saved it and is designated as a historic landmark. So we'll put it on. This is the lumber company here, and this is what Hayward Lumber looks like today. It's just a spur, but they bring center beam flats in with lumber and offload. It's the last remaining industry that's served by rail in Santa Barbara City area, the South Coast. Up in Lompoc, there was a bean warehouse, and it had tracks in it. For a long time, you could see where the tracks were in Laurel Avenue. The main branch tracks go right down the middle, but you could see where the switch was into the bean warehouse. Right now, all I have is, oops, let's go back. Just a photograph on the wall. This is up at the upper level. This is on my layout. There was a little SW1500 that serviced the diatomaceous earth mine. Eventually, I'll repaint the CSX into something more like that. This is a 1953, I want to say RLHS excursion up to the mine. This is a 1922 picture with a steam engine down here at the bottom and 22 boxcars, probably filled with diatomaceous earth. So there's tracks down here, there's tracks up here. These tracks up here are the ones that you can see here behind the steam engine. These are aerial views. You can see the tracks down below, up above, and even over here against this warehouse, you can see some of the cover hoppers that were being used at the time. So that's that, and this is real stand-in. I'm going to kit bash these kits and make it look like some of the structures that were up at the mine. But we've got all the trackage in already, and it actually has been switched a couple of times. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I would like to go ahead and try the remote operations. I need to start working on those structures and scenery. And you know, as we go along, people are always coming up with new technology. And there's a possibility for layout expansion. I'm not going to talk about that. Backdating, sure. Once the track's in, the track didn't move a lot. So then you can backdate. All you need to do is like change out the automobiles or something, because a lot of the industries stayed the same as well. Change some of the rolling stock and the locomotives, and we're in business. So thanks for watching. Don't go away. I do have a couple of videos that I'd like to share, so you can take a trip on the railroad. And the second video is an off-the-wall change of era to 1949. I got bitten by the steam bug. Normally I'm running diesel locomotives in 1994, but I'm part of a group that's working on modifying Bachmann 280s to make them look more like Harrimans, especially SP units. And so Jason Hill, who's over in Nevada, has been spearheading this and is doing some 3D castings. And there's a whole bunch of us that are working on that. So that got me going. And then I started looking at how many locomotives I'd need to run the locomotive or the layout that I've been sharing with you. And I came up with 9. So I figured, okay, let's do it. And I had 4 or 5 already, so it wasn't a big push. And when I started looking around, somebody had a 210-2 brass engine with a decoder and sound in it for about $200. I said, I'll go for that. So that got me going, and I'll show the video. But first we'll show a video of the, let's see if I can bring it up, a video of the, of just running across the railroad from Carpinteria to La Batera. This is just the lower level. Let's try this. How about if I press go? And see, everybody can see that? Oh, you know what I did?
Yeah, yes, we can.
Okay. I didn't optimize sound, but I don't.
No, you played it. Did you play it in the advance if you did the sounds there?
Yeah. So that was Carpinteria. You can see the station, this San Diego on the left. There's a little town called Santa Claus. It's just north of Carpinteria, and we're going to put it right there. I do have a little bit of scenery. This is a lemon grove. Since I have 4 lemon packing houses on my layout, I probably had to have some lemon groves. This is Summerland. At one time, Seaside Oil had a refinery there. They started there, and the first offshore oil drilling in North America was there at Summerland. We're actually passing underneath the Santa Barbara Yard at this point. This is called using the space twice. The Miramar Hotel is here, the old style with the blue roofs. They had a Pullman called the National Embassy and a lounge car, what was it, a cafe lounge from Santa Fe that they actually served hamburgers and things in. So there's a slight grade coming out of Summerlin up to Santa Barbara. Once you get to Santa Barbara, the industrial area is off to the right, and we're going through on one of the mains, this Coast Starlight sitting over at the station. That's what we're going by on the right. Definitely needs some scenery though.
What was the optical detection doing there that we just passed, Bruce?
So asking about the optical detector, there's 2 of them. It's a talking detector. It does hot boxes and things.
Thank you.
Should stop these. So yeah, the optical detector was for a track detection circuit that counts the axles, determines the speed of the train, and periodically, randomly says that there's a hot box on a certain axle. There'll be a defect. If there's no defects, it'll say no defects. It's just like a regular SP talking detector. It's a program and hardware that was developed by Jim Farrick in Colorado. I think his company is called Boulder Creek Engineering. He sells speedometers and scales. David Parks is on the call today. David has some of Jim's scales at one of his coal operations. I know because I've used it before. Just before I start up, just here on the right is one of John Plocker's flagmen. It's just an LED with a little man. You set it down on the tracks and it takes the current and shows you that it's live. It also works great as a flagman. So we're coming in, the train is on the house track at Goleta. So we're coming into La Patera. And you can see the reefers are actually on the lumber spur, but you could see the other part just to the left, the packing house and the produce packing house. And then it goes into the helix, and this is where this particular video stops. So let me stop sharing this one and I'll do one more. I think I'm at my hour time, aren't I?
We started a little late, so, and there are a couple of questions too, so.
All right, this is only about 3 minutes long. Sorry about the sound, it's a little loud.
I don't think you're sharing. And this time, turn the sound on when you share, because you're sharing it as a screen. So share, do the video optimization for video.
Hang on, yeah, I'm sorry.
That's all, no worries.
That's what I want to do. Thanks for keeping me honest. Can I do this?
Just
Does that work?
there you go. Yep, just hit the play. Good.
Bruce, this must have been a section where the spline was replaced with the plywood.
Cool. Bruce, there were a couple of questions in the chat. First off, have your aisle widths been adequate, and what kind of aisle widths do you generally have?
The answer to adequacy is no, they're not. They're too tight. I really wanted them tighter or wider than they were, but I have a limited space within the garage, and so that's what I did. Story, most of the aisle widths are about 30 to 36 inches wide.
Hmm.
There is a tight spot of 27 inches. And I had the washing machine die on me. And I had to move the washing machine out from where it is hidden inside, outside, and then get a new one back in. And it fit with about a quarter of an inch on either side of the washing machine.
So that's a really important insight that, you know, you should measure everything that has to get out of your layout room to make sure you left adequate room to get it out. Probably
Exactly.
that would be a spousal issue if you couldn't replace the washing machine.
Probably would be. So I would say that I really enjoy wide aisles. I don't anticipate a large crew. I had a couple of people who were friends of mine in wheelchairs. And both of them have been in the layout and gone around in wheelchairs. So the one person had a motorized one, and I was really concerned because you take it in, how do you get it back out again? And it turned out that he was able to go all the way into the middle and turn his motorized chair around and come right back out again. So there was enough room for that, which kind of surprised me, but I was glad for it. I think that probably it'd be better if you're still planning to plan for 48-inch aisles. There will always be times when those numbers will going to be squeezed. But if you start out wider, it's a lot better, a lot more comfortable for the operators. And with 2 levels, it makes it doubly difficult.
But I think that planning is the planning of a building that would have sufficient space. I think what your point is that there's always this trade-off between the railroad and the space for aisles. So the other question was, what's your minimum mainline radius?
About 30 inches.
Cool. Any other questions for Bruce?
I think I heard somebody ask me a question. I better not point to somebody. I thought it was David's voice. Mr. Gibbons.
Hey, Bruce, I've got a question for you. With regards to spline roadbed, one of the drawbacks I've always heard is that it's hard to go back and attach scenery and things to the edges of it later. You know, when I've done stuff, I just do things on plywood. Can you comment on attaching scenery to spline roadbed?
Yes. But back to David's question, I think, David, you were going to ask me about the plywood roadbed when we were going with the cab forward. That's all been replaced when that was taken. So that was all plywood. And to Earl's question about attaching scenery, if you noticed in that cab forward, as we went by the lemon grove, there was a big gap between the plywood and the scenery. I have not attached it yet. That was, I do a lot of experimenting on my layout. I try this technique and that technique. I don't have any uniform technique as I go across the railroad. That scenery was built on a fiberglass mesh, you know, that like you're when you glass a surfboard or something. And I just put plaster on top of it and it's fine, but it's not attached to the roadbed. I tried attaching something to all the roadbed. Now I'm gonna not remember the guy's name. He did an article in either RMC or Model Railroader years ago about red rosin paper. Anybody remember who it was? Anyway, red rosin paper is something that building trades use. So you can get it at Home Depot, Lowe's, those kind of places. And what I did was I attached it using hot glue, and then I paint the paper with white glue. just painted with white glue, and it stiffens it up, and then you can put plaster on top of that. But it does connect with hot glue, so the answer, Earl, is hot glue. And that worked pretty well with the hardboard, the masonite spline. I did a couple things with the masonite spline. I left holes in it so that I could put the feeders through. Drilling masonite is not fun. So that's why I left the holes. But like I said, once I got it in, I tried to have it level to begin with, but it just wasn't uniform. And so the cars would tip one way or the other. And there was a lot of this going on as you went along the tracks. And I just couldn't get rid of that. So we ended up stopping. Other questions? I didn't read all the chat, so.
Yeah, just a quick question. That strip LED light that you bought from Amazon, you had a slide that said what it was, and I missed the name.
Okay.
Not the one that was underneath the decks, but
Not
the one that was on the ceiling, I think.
okay. It's Barina, B-A-R-R-I-N-A, I think, or B-A-R-I-N-N-A. Did I put was there a, I'm sorry, a link on the video?
Yeah, no, there was a link in your slides, I
Okay,
think.
let me see if I can't get it.
Yeah, if you can just grab the link, Bruce,
Yeah.
when we get done and throw it in the chat, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
gonna do.
no big deal. Thank you.
Cool.
2 other quick questions, Bruce.
Oh, no, I don't see a link in it.
Oh, okay, we'll find it then.
Let me see if I can find it anyway. Okay. Questions? Keep going.
Okay, Bruce, what happened to the gigantic heap of stuff that was in the half of the garage?
The big question. Two things happened to it. I got rid of some of it. Some of it is still in the garage, underneath the layout.
Mhm.
Some of this stuff is in our family room, to which my spouse says, when are we going to clean up this family room? When I was looking for a place to put the layout originally, when we first moved into the house, my wife actually said, why don't you put the layout in the family room? And I said, no, I don't think I want to do that. And I'm glad I didn't. The layout's a work in progress. I don't want to do that to the family room.
My wife calls it clutter, and that includes all my model railroad equipment.
Exactly.
Guys, I put this in the chat.
Oh.
This is the Barina. Like, these are the specific lights. And I'll also put the next chat is, and this is a link to their shop. They have a shop and they have lots of lights in the shop. I'll put that link up also.
Thank you very much, Phil. That's
No worries.
That's exactly where I got it. And the other thing you want to look at with lighting is the color. So Barina has different K values. So you want to look at what you want to do, whether you want it warm or cool. I think I went with 4,000.
Yep. That's actually, I think what that link is the 4,000s.
Yeah.
I'm using 6500K on over my switching layout. I like the cooler colors. I think that's a matter of taste. One more question, Bruce. Early on in your slide presentation, you had a shot of a train. There was a train in the distance. You were talking about the main town. And behind the locomotive in that shot was a boxcar with white plastic frames around the car. Was that a clearance checker car
Yes.
by chance?
Yeah. That was it was a model, right? Yeah. So I have Vandenberg on my layout. And Vandenberg gets rocket parts. They don't, it used to be an Air Force base. It's now a Space Force base. They never had planes assigned there. But they would get rocket parts in.
All right.
And the rocket parts were built other places and were brought there. And there are solid rocket booster trains.
Hmm.
If you go to YouTube and search for solid rocket booster trains, and there are cars. The one I know of is built on a rail box car.
Mhm.
And they just put this clearance on the outside of the box car so that they know that the rockets can get through that clearance. So you're absolutely right. That's a clearance car. And that's what you were looking at.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, Bruce, can you go into a little more detail on the camera that you put in that dummy locomotive? Sounds like something interesting to do, and I'm gathering it's a Bluetooth camera, right?
Okay, hang on a second. Let me take a quick look.
While he looks at that, Larry, I will remark, at least I'm standing off to the side track from where the train is. You're on the track.
It's an SP locomotive, Dave. It ain't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Ouch.
This is another one of these Amazon things. Hang on, let me share the screen again for just a second. If you take that description, hidden spy camera, Wi-Fi, 1080p, video, mini camera, wireless, 150 degrees, take all that sort of garbage and put it into Amazon, you'll find it. I will tell you that I've made it work, but it has some issues with it. And what I want to do is make it so that it works well enough that I can use it on that OBS program that I've got, so that people can see via remote. They can look at the engineer's view as they go along. It's got to be uploadable through the internet.
Yeah, I took a dummy locomotive and I put in a mobile decoder with sound and two big giant speakers, and I stuck it in there, and it works real well. So this looks like another good use for a dummy locomotive.
Yeah. Check with the guys down at Silicon Valley, because they do the same thing, and they've got a camera that works pretty well. Silicon Valley does or was doing some remote operations. And so it's a valuable resource within the division.
I think the other thing is, if you want to take, if you're looking to just make videos, we actually have it's a GoPro, what they call a session. So it doesn't have a screen. It's just a little cube, and it'll actually fit on an HO flat car pretty well. And you can just run it. And it also has Wi-Fi, so you can, look at it remotely as it goes, but it records. We use one of those actually at the O-Scale Club in Pleasanton. I got a big battery and made a little cart up that fits into a gondola and holds the battery and the camera. And we run it all day long with an iPad up behind the glass so that so the public gets essentially a locomotive view, but that's actually pushing a gondola in front of the engine. So it's not built in there. We've been talking about trying to build it into the engine, but it requires a bit of work.
There wasn't, for a long time, they were selling these little cube cameras that they aren't attached to anything. they record on a micro SD card. And that's what I use to make that video, that the cab video that you saw. And I did exactly what Phil's talking about. I took the camera and I made a little foam base for it. There you go.
That's what this is what a session looks like. It's a little,
Yeah,
basically it's a little cube like that. You put a micro card in it, but they've got an app that runs that gives you a preview so you can see it.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice for basic stuff.
So I put it in a gondola and pushed it in front of the locomotive. And then I could get the cab view without doing all the neat stuff in the cab. But I challenge you, Larry, go ahead and do it. It's, I got it. I put it in, but it all fits. I just have to make it work so that I connected it up to my, my phone, my smartphone, and I ran the dummy and it worked great.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a whirl.
Yeah, but I need to figure out how to get it from the smartphone to the remote sharing device. So that's not too hard. Any other questions?
Well, thanks,
yes.
Bruce. Oh.
There you go. Somebody did it. Bob, thank you very much. It was Howard Zane. He was the red rosin person.
Well, thanks, Bruce. That was really cool and inspirational for those of us that don't have a layout to get going. So everybody give Bruce a round of applause, and we appreciate it. And with that, we're going to go ahead and move into our next little closing segment, which is a bit of kind of what you're modeling. So I think Bob said he had something he wanted to show. I don't know if anyone else has anything they'd like to show. David has something. So Bob, why don't you go ahead and go first, and we'll let David go. I've actually got a couple of things I'd like to show as well. So we'll buzz through real quick.
No, I had nothing. I was just cheering Bruce.
Oh no, I was talking David Gibbons. I think he had something.
All right.
Let's go. But David Parks, whenever you want to show something too, that'd be great.
No. Thank you.
Okay, do I have the floor here?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Folks, I am working towards getting another big layout visit going, in this case down in Crockett, the Carquinez gang. And I need to ask you guys some questions so I can get a sense of whether what I have in mind will interest enough people for me to proceed forward. I've had some initial communications with them, but to proceed forward with this idea. You know, we arranged to go down and we visited the South Bay gang and enjoyed a visit there plus layout tours. What I want to do is, what I'm proposing to do is quite a bit different. I believe on the 18th of February, the gang, the Carquinez Club will be having an operating session. And I am wanting to see, have some answers and questions about this. Their president said that we could not show up en masse to participate or view an operating session. We would have to have groups come in. Would that, first of all, would you be interested in being part of a small group who would come in for a certain period of time during their operating session to observe such activities? Would anybody be interested in that? Raise a hand or click on your reactions button and show me a hand. I'm trying to get an idea who'd be interested. 1, 2. All right. Next, there is a toy train layout in the same building on the floor above. Is that something people would be interested in visiting, possibly to facilitate having groups of us go and be down at the Carquinez layout? That the other alternative would be to go up and view the toy train layout. Could I see hands on that, please? 2. All right. Next, there's an N-scale layout down in Crockett in a separate building. If I can ask them if we're okay to come down and visit that during this outing. Who'd be interested in visiting that layout? One. Okay.
So I guess this would kind of be an alternating thing where maybe we have three groups and one group goes to the N scale layout while another group goes to the toy train and one group does the operation, and we kind of rotate through a period of time. I think that's kind of what David was thinking about.
Yes,
So,
thank you. Thank you, Phil, for putting that better than I was. Lastly, is anybody interested, if I can talk them into it, to have a visit to the layout at Just Trains while we're up there in the northern part? Anybody interested in that? This is where I'd be encouraging them to have something running. I see a couple hands. So there's another one. Okay, so a few people are interested in that. Yeah, Phil, I'm not seeing a roaring amount of interest, but I want to continue to work towards this because it's something different, particularly the core idea of getting a chance to sit in on operations at Carquinez. Does anybody object to giving this a try? Do you think it's how shall I put it, a waste of effort, or is it worth doing to provide some variety?
I think it's worth
And
doing.
talk to me here, people.
Mhm. I mean,
yeah, I think the thought would be we meet there at a certain time and then we break up into three groups and kind of, do half-hour segments, and then maybe, something along those lines.
I think,
Or,
Phil, I have to talk to the president there and his operations team to find out how big of a group they want us to, a block of us, how
right.
many there is, so I get an idea of how many folks can be accommodated in total. It may require signups to say, I want to sign up to be in this group, that group, the other group. I'm glad to organize that. But
Cool.
operations fascinate me, and I know some of you other folks are interested in it, and this would be a chance to see it going. I may try to rope in poor Seth in his capacity and OPSEG to help enrich the experience also. Phil, given what you see here, do you think it's still worthwhile for me to proceed in trying to put this together?
Well, I would ask it maybe that question just for the group. Does it sound, we didn't get a lot of response to folks. So is there anyone, does everybody kind of think it makes sense to continue? Is that?
so let's put it this way. From my perspective, I've never been to an operating session, so it'd be a good way of an introduction to it.
And especially
All right.
at a club level where it's a fairly large facility. So
Fairly large understatement of the week there, sir. I see several people are interested, Phil, so I'm going to continue to talk, liven up my conversation with them. We had the big model railroad show that opened up in March that sort of we held for a little bit on this, but I will now get active and define, working with them to see what they're comfortable with in hosting as many of us as can be accommodated and as many of us that are interested. But I see some folks that are interested, so I'm going to reach out to the toy train guys to see if they would be willing to be open for guests that day, the N-Scale gang, and Just Trains to say, would you be willing to have some folks drop by on that day to see something and encourage Just Trains to actually have something running?
Hey, Dave, I think all of this is a great idea. One of the things that we need to do is kind of get some momentum going. And even if there's not a lot of attendance at some of these events, is just get people seeing that we have things going on. It's kind of a benefit to being in the NMRA, and we can get people kind of more engaged again.
Yep.
All right. Great. Thank you, everybody, for your attention on this.
Yeah, Dave, one other question. You said the HO and the N scale are in two different buildings. Do you know how far apart those buildings are? Can we walk or do we drive?
Good question. The N scale layout, I think, is down towards the waterfront, and I suspect it's not walking distance. I'll have to get the exact information on where the N scale guys are and what it takes to get over there. But yeah, there's going to obviously be some logistics that has to be figured out.
Yeah,
you're going to need to require more time then to get between the two.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think, Bob, you had something you wanted to share?
Can't hear them.
Bob, you're muted.
Yeah, I think your mic may not be picked out right because you're not actually muted by Zoom, but Zoom must not be connected to your mic.
Can you
And
hear
now
me
the
now?
exciting section we
Yep.
call Bob Wrestling with Technology.
Yeah, I know there's a random selector for what mic it uses, system or the actual mic, and I just have to pick
Right.
the other one. Okay, so we'll try this again. So I've been working on the website for about a year and I learned WordPress. So I just added a new page. So you can all I have a place for to take people to the YouTube channel. I have a place for the Coast Extra that I'll get updates from. This isn't the updated one. I'll get an update from Phil. And I just added a call board that lists people who have responsibilities and how to get in contact with them. So this is just something that it's been a project that I've been working on in my spare time. And I just added the call board page today. So I just wanted to share that. So I'm sure there are other people that need to be on this, and I'm planning on putting in a section for achievement because I'm really interested in supporting that. And so I'll just keep on working on that. So I appreciate everybody's support. The other thing I wanted to share was my project. I'm doing my very first structure. So I've not been into model railroading for about 30 years. I got involved with the NMRA and the Central California Coast 030 project. I'm building a club spec test module. So this is sort of my opportunity to try out everything in a small place and get it right before I actually build my layout, because I found out that I didn't know how to do things after not doing anything for 30 years. And I actually invented a Cadian coupler mechanism that uses tortoise to drive neodymium magnets up and down, and it works really great. So that was good. I have a place, the things to add to this are a large oak tree, which I'm not talking about now, and a fruit shed, which I'm planning on adding in on that removable flat section there. I was inspired by a Jim Vale article in the 2003 Narrow Gauge and Short Line Gazette. It looked like I wanted to put a creamery there, but the creamery would have been too big, and the fruit shed looked like a good first project. So inspired by that, I did some research, and I'm just going to show some photographs of my research. This is from a Western Pacific freight shed on Carrington Road. What city? I actually don't know, because it wasn't in the photographs. It just said it was a Carrington Road freight shed. So I'm still doing research to find out exactly where this is, but it's a great set of photographs of an old fruit shed. And I'm going to use this as the basis for my model. And that's just what I wanted to share.
Cool.
I think it's a great old building.
That's great. I like the idea that the thing that's interesting about that is that the spaced walls, the spaced boards for walls with open between them is it becomes very interesting. That's intriguing because you get to see inside a little bit.
Yep.
So if you guys are interested, I'll share a couple of things here. So let me throw this. This was a project. So, I hate to do this with Earl here because I always feel when Earl's here, it's so inadequate. But this was actually a build-along project on a thing called New Tracks. And so they had a build-along. This is a Berkshire Valley 16-foot ore car kit. It's a laser cut kit. They had a 25% discount if you bought them, and I decided I'd do 4 of them. So basically, these are 4 little kits of Berkshire Valley. One comment on this was really interesting is if you look at the sides of these, when you get down here, you can actually see there's wood graining in there. They actually suggested spraying them with a little bit of primer to try to get some grain. I use the same technique that I used on the wooden frame buildings of using what's called filler primer, and then to create the wood grain. The thought process that came out of that to me is that rather than laser cutting these side panels, it would be really easy to make them 3D printed. So this is a little bit of the construction method. Basically, everything was painted. You can see there the filler primer for the sides for doing the sides on top of the structural framework. What's in the back there, by the way, are coupler pockets for to have, or not coupler pockets, cab pockets to have cab holders on, and then they're put on Velcro for modules. So a way of putting your cab holders on. One thing I did was, I don't know if anybody's done something like this. These are actually wheel sets. In the past, I've always taken wheel sets apart and painted the wheels and axles separate from the rest of the parts in the whole truck. What I thought about was I decided that, if you paint these things and they're already in there, they're not going to get any paint in them, especially when you paint from the side. So what I did was I just mounted them to a piece of wood using some wood screws, painted them all black, and then used some of the bins weathering to weather them. So just kind of an interesting way to do that. So that was one project. And I'm
It
sure
probably works better in O scale, Phil, than HO. I think it's easier for you to mask the wheels treads.
but these are actually, those were HO.
Oh, they were HO?
Yeah, these are actually HO wheels because it's ON30. And so what I did was for the covering here, the wheel covering, I actually took the masking tape and cut it into a 4mm by 55mm strip, and then just rolled it around the wheel, keeping it about 0.5 millimeter sticking out on the back side of the wheel, rolled it around and got it attached to the lip of the wheel, and then kind of pinched it around on the flange. And where it was sticking out over, I pushed with my thumbnail, got it off of the face. So basically, it's just on the flange. A couple of places, I'm sure I'll get a little paint on the flange I'll have to clean off afterwards. But what I actually did, if you probably don't notice, but if you look here at the picture there of the car, it's actually, the masking tape is still on the wheels because I left it on. I've got to letter these and I've got to weather them, and I want to just leave it on for the weathering as well and just take it off at the very end. So we'll see how that works when I get done and take it off. I don't know if there are any questions on that. So this is the other project I've been working, and I'll go ahead and share this one. So this was actually based on a comment that was made in one of our, I think it was one of the ON30 meetings, but it may have been somewhere else. And the comment was, why can't you have a vertical slide switch at the front panel to run a turnout? Now, obviously, this is not where you have CTC and you want electrical control of your turnout, but where you want manual control. So this is a 3D printed turnout system. The major parts are all 3D printed. It's about 12 hours total. The commercial parts are about $1 per turnout. And you'll see when you kind of look at this, it actually, the front panel could work with a Blue Point or a Fast Tracks as well. Conversely, the turnout mechanism itself could be used in other ways. So what you're seeing here is actually what's on the front panel. Ignore the holes that you see, the light holes in the back. Those were there for springs that after I got done with the engineering, I decided I didn't need. I just haven't reprinted this. The two designators on the top and the bottom are actually separate little prints. So you can print, those are printed actually both ways. So you can put them on either side, or you can change it to other designations if you want. So basically this is a little test structure I set up with it. And it basically, the way it works is underneath there's a mechanism to turn the rotational motion of a paddle in the front into basically a horizontal direct action, linear action that then translates. And what done here is designed a 3D printed turnout mechanism, which obviously would work for HO because this is ON30. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop that, and I do have a little video I'm going to share. It's kind of how it works, which I think gives you a better example of And it'll take me just a second to find the video. There it is. So this should be, so this is basically how it works.
Can you feel the spring tension through that?
Yeah, you
paddle as
really,
you move it up and down?
you really can, yes. And so you'll notice that, and we talk about this in a second, kind of how the springs are, and there's a switch there. It's a single pull double throw switch, and I've actually got a second mechanism designed that has 2 switches in it. So basically, that's the turnout mechanism. So if you look at it here, I'll go back to the slide presentation. So essentially, you know, the way this works is that you've got these, you know, the 2 pieces there. What runs in between them is just a piece of curtain, it's just a piece of coat hanger here. So these are actually, this is actually the mechanism. It uses kind of 2 concepts here. There are 2 the springs are on either side, which basically means that they balance each other out. So it turns out that the upper part of this that moves sits into the seat and is just held in place by the springs. Kind of the design is, if you look at the angle between, hang on, let me stop sharing it this way. Let me share my screen so I can show you guys on it here. So if you look at the angle here between the triangle between this point where the spring connects, this is the pivot point in the bottom. You notice that the angle here of this one over here is much steeper than the one that's up at the top. So what happens is this spring actually pulls it over to the side, while this one doesn't generate a lot of torsional force on the side when it's in this position. When it flips over here, this spring now is doing all the torsional force, and this one's actually almost straight. So it's actually, I'm manipulating the angle. Took a while to get the angles right. This thing actually flips at a 25-degree angle on either side. And then the you know, the connection is just, like I said, a curtain rod, and then these are some 3D printed little pieces that actually just slip on or slip tight to hold everything together. And so here's kind of, I think, a top view of it. You know, if you wanted to mount it in a slightly different position, I've actually have not designed it, but it's pretty easy to design a rotational piece that would rotate it and allow you, for example, if you wanted to mount the turnout back here right by the fascia, you just have this piece come out and have a twist bar that would move the motion back to move the turnout over here. And this thing will hold the turnout. It's pretty solid when you hold it, you know, not pretty solid, it's very solid when you hold it over. The way you actually adjust the tension on the turnout is by adjusting the size of the music wire that you use. So a thicker music wire will give more tension. And then the last thing, because it's 3D printed, this was very easy to take the footprint of it and generate a tool to actually let you do the positioning. So basically you center the turnout, stick this through the hole down into the turnout. It's got some lines on it to show you which way the throw is. And then you can mark exact positions to drill the holes to put the turnout in place. So that's kind of how far I got. It was kind of more of a project just based on the challenge of it. And I'm trying to figure out what to do with it now. I'll probably at least put maybe a little video together about how to use it and put the parts up on Thingiverse, but that's kind of the point that I'm at. So anyway.
The unit under the turnout could still be driven by a push-pull knob, couldn't it? You don't have to have the slide.
And I think you could use the front panel with a blue point if you wanted to as well. It might need necessarily to adjust the distance of, you know, the rotational distance, because the length it throws may be different. But yeah, the thing underneath you could use with a and you again you could adjust. Hang on, let me share my screen again here. And so if you look here at this is probably the easiest picture to see it in. So if you were doing blue point, I think this would probably need to be down here, so it was a shorter distance for the blue points. They don't take as much distance. Similarly, if you were using a push-pull button on the front panel, if you decrease this distance on this throw, down to here, the distance to throw this becomes less. So it turns out that this distance here is matched to this distance. This distance here, so the throw is actually the same. You see a couple of marks up here where I was determining that to do the math on what the angles are for it. So, but yeah, you can feel it's very positive when you feel it, when you move it. And the advantage, you know, to my mind, the big advantage of doing it this way is that there's nothing to hit as you walk through those narrow aisles that we all build in our layouts, because we don't have enough room. You know, the little push buttons, I always thought that somebody would walk by with a heavy pair of jeans and catch one and tear it off. With this, you wouldn't tear it off. So anyway, that was the other little project I've been working on over the past couple of weeks. Anybody else got any other shares?
I have two questions, but not a share, Phil.
Sure.
How many clinics do you think are going to be shown at the division auction?
Just one.
And how
Just
long
one.
is the time window?
Probably about an hour.
Well, clinic chairman is here to tell you all he's looking for somebody who'd like to do a clinic at the auction. Get in touch with me. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you. Well, I guess if there's nothing, no one else has anything that they'd like to cover, we're at almost 11 o'clock. I think it's probably time to call it a day.
Thanks again, Bruce, for your good presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce. That was wonderful. And everyone have a great weekend, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. And mark your calendars for the 4th of December for an auction. So we will see everyone then.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye now.